Panasiewicz, for those of you who don't know me. I am the coordinator for the Lake Erie Watershed Protection Alliance, and today I'm going to be giving a little bit of background about LEWPA and focusing on 10 years of New York State Environmental Protection Fund funding and what we've done with that so far. So to begin with, if it will move, here we go. All of this started back in 2009 when we had Cattaraugus Creek flooding. It was a pretty substantial flooding event. Some of you may recall that Gowanda was hit very heavily. I believe the mouth of the creek, Silver Creek, Hanover, that area was also hit pretty hard. And a lot of municipal officials got together at that time across the various counties, so Chautauqua, Cattaraugus, and Erie County, and they brought in elected officials at that time as well. So the issue was they were now dealing with a catastrophic flood and FEMA and everything that that involves. And those municipal and elected officials started meeting because they wanted to be more proactive. They wanted to figure out how they could prevent things like that happening. And they formed what they called the Watershed Action Consortium at the time. And there were certain folks who were pretty instrumental. Legislator John Mills was a big part of that. He had gone to a conference and seen that Lake George was getting lots of funding. And as he liked to say, Lake Erie's way bigger than Lake George. We should have our cut of money. So we actually ended up modeling ourselves off of LEWPA, which is the Finger Lakes Lake Ontario Watershed Protection Alliance. And so you can see how our name is very similar as well. And basically we were the 3 counties on the western portion of the state that were not part of LEWPA. And so we formed LEWPA, the Lake Erie Watershed Protection Alliance, as a way to follow along on the model that LEWPA had created and access some of the funding that LEWPA was accessing. And so we drafted some bylaws, and in 2013 we were able to give a presentation to the Western New York legislative delegation, so the local state elected officials. And we spoke about that. We spoke about the need for there to be funding that came to New York State specifically for Lake Erie. At the time, the funding that New York State was receiving from the federal government was all going towards Lake Ontario, and most of the Lake Erie funding was actually ending up in Ohio rather than New York State. And so that was sort of the impetus for LEWPA. As a result of that, those elected officials were developing the 2015 budget, and they did put LEWPA in that budget. And so in the interim, we developed a formal intermunicipal agreement between the 3 counties. So again, Erie, Cattaraugus, and Chautauqua counties formalized their agreement to work together on water quality and water quantity issues. And once the 2015 budget came out and we had our first designation, we were able to access the environmental protection funds for Lake Erie, which was pretty landmark. Folks at the Soil and Water Conservation District, like Mark Gaston, had been pushing to get funding for years before this. So I think what made this special was the fact that it was a ground up movement. So we had a lot of municipal officials, supervisors and mayors and folks that were on the ground who really pushed for this. And I think the state saw the value in that. So LEWPA represents the voices of the community, and as a result, our board reflects that. So we have regional and local municipal officials on the board, as well as soil and water conservation districts. We also have environmental and various nonprofit organizations and any concerned stakeholders, as well as the public, able to participate as well. And our mission statement there is to foster collaboration and partnerships within the watershed to address regional water quality and quantity concerns, and in doing so, protect and enhance our Lake Erie resource. So our objectives, as you can see here, are to, support and participate in existing state and federal initiatives. So really the point of LEWPA is to take what's already happening and continue to move that through the community level and send up those community issues and concerns to the state and federal level as well. Also, we're looking to undertake a watershed management approach. So looking at the entire watershed in terms of water quality and quantity issues. So again, we started because of flooding, but also water quality was a big part of that. And some of the issues with flooding, but also other issues not related to flooding that impact water quality. So both of those are really our goals. And then of course to improve community awareness, so that outreach and education component. And this matters because LEWPA is a regional community-driven organization, and it's an opportunity for state and federal entities to channel funding for water quality investments in Western New York. So it's a way to bring the higher level funding down to the communities in a way that makes sense because of watershed planning. So a little bit of background about the New York State Environmental Protection Fund. Our first contract with New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, so that first year of funding from 2015, was approved in fall of 2016. And so our first contract was 2016 through 2020. We ended up having a one-year no-cost extension. And so that's why, as you might be thinking, well, we've been getting funding since 2015, but we only have 4 years technically that I'll be reporting on. As with all things, there are delays in contracting, and then of course once you get the funding, you have to implement the projects, and then you have to get results from the projects, and so on and so forth. So that's why there's some delays with that. But just so you can kind of see the time scale here, our first contract essentially was 2016 through 2021, and then our second contract was delayed again because of COVID, and so that started July of 2021 and goes through June of 2026. So far we have been blessed by having our Western New York legislative delegation pushing for us to have that continued $250,000 annual appropriation in the EPF. And that is what we use for implementation of water quality projects throughout the region. So here is a map of where those projects take place. I don't expect you to be able to read these, but just so you can get sort of a spatial idea of what we're talking about here. So again, keep in mind that LEWPA is only Erie, Cattaraugus, and Chautauqua counties, so that's why you do see a lack of projects in Niagara, Genesee, Wyoming counties. Even though they're part of the watershed, they are part of the Finger Lakes Lake Ontario Watershed Protection Alliance, FLOPA, and so they get their funding through that stream. But you can kind of see here the different years are different colors, and we've tried to space those projects out throughout the watershed. A lot of really great projects, everything from stream bank, road bank restoration, to outreach and education, to some green infrastructure projects, invasive species management, so lots of different projects impacting water quality. And then this next slide is going to show you the cumulative results from that first contract. So that first contract was $1 million, 4 years of $250,000 each. You can see in the middle of this graphic here where I mentioned $847,800. That is the actual funding that went to on-the-ground projects. So of the $1 million, roughly $850,000 of that went on the ground. So it's about a 15% admin and outreach fee. I guess you would say that's the wrong term for it. You know, we're spending about 15% of the project on administration and then also outreach funding. So not actual on the ground funds. But that almost $850,000 leveraged an additional $1.8 million in additional funds. So that means $2.6 million has gone to on the ground water quality improvement projects, which is pretty great in that first 4 years. You can see some of the other benefits here. 242,000 pounds of nutrients, so phosphorus and nitrogen, have been prevented from entering waterways, as well as over 80,000 tons of sediment, which is fantastic. Over 10,000 feet of stream and road bank have been stabilized and 100 acres hydroseeded. We've actually done 16 feasibility studies or technical reports, and what that generally refers to is smaller scale, you know, $15,000, $25,000 feasibility studies, mostly so that municipalities can scope out projects before they have to put in their own money to implement or to bond for some sort of a larger construction project or something like that. Or in many cases, you need to have a feasibility study in place to even apply for some of the state funding through the consolidated funding application. And so LEWPA is that opportunity for municipalities to have minimal investment, but to explore some of these environmental projects and see if they make sense. And in some cases, we've done some of these studies and it didn't make sense. The cost benefit analysis wasn't there, or the site just didn't have perfect conditions for it to work out, that sort of a thing. And so that's a really great benefit of LEWPA and those studies. In addition to our New York State Environmental Protection Fund funding, we've also received federal funding. Mark is wincing if you can't see that. But we have had the opportunity, and I think Mark thinks blessing, to be able to work with this EPA funding source. The Great Lakes Restoration Initiative Focus Area 3 is for non-point source pollution impacts on nearshore health. So what that means is looking at ways to reduce stormwater or nutrients entering Lake Erie. And our first project that's on the screen there was our green infrastructure at Lake Erie Beach in the town of Evans, and we also did work at Point Gratiot Park, which is in the city of Dunkirk. And as you can see on the left, we had a beautiful design that was given to us from New York State. They had received funding, I think, from the OGS, Office of General Services. Thanks. Yep. And they had funded these designs. And so LEWPA was handed these designs and implemented these designs without having been in the process of creating those designs. And I think we learned a lot of lessons as a result of that. As you can see on the right there, that was after one of the many SAISH events that kicked a lot of debris onto Lake Erie Beach in Evans. And we do have Bill Smith here today, who's seen the results of all of those SAISH events. Doing this again, we now know that if we're going to undertake green infrastructure along the shoreline, there's some things that we need to pay attention to. And so this was a great lesson learned opportunity. The other thing to keep in mind is that the town of Evans did not have to put any of their own money into this project. Now, that being said, they are on the hook for maintenance, and of course they had to use their resources to clean up debris and so forth, but that would have happened whether this project was in place or not. So this funding source is a valuable asset, I think, to municipalities. And the next project, it's not in Erie County, so I'm not going to talk too much about it, but they're doing some work at Wright Park Beach and Main Street Beach, again in the city of Dunkirk. And then currently EPA and the town of Evans are working on a work plan to move forward with our Muddy Creek project. So you can see a picture there. That's an example of some erosion happening along Muddy Creek. This stream bank restoration and green infrastructure project is going to help reduce the amount of erosion, so the nutrients and sediment that are entering Muddy Creek and flowing into Lake Erie. Looking at that, that's $475,000 that's being invested into the town of Evans, and Evans is not going to have to spend that money. They're not going to have to bond for that. It's not coming out of the taxpayers' pockets. So it's an excellent opportunity for environmental work to be happening at the municipal level without too much municipal investment. I say that because, of course, there's time involved in developing these projects, creating work plans, managing them, maintenance, etc. But that's in kind, so it's in theory easier to bear.
Oh yeah?
I say that because I'm not doing it, but Bill might give a different answer later on. I guess the other thing to point out is, if you notice, we've seen the town of Evans and Dunkirk repeatedly, because who shows up to these meetings? Town of Evans is here, and they're always explaining to us what their issues are and what the potential projects are. Same thing's happening down in Chautauqua County. Dunkirk is at the table. So this is why I'm happy to see municipalities on the call today, to remind you that this is an opportunity at these meetings to discuss what some of those environmental, water quality, and also flooding issues are in your town, so that you can share any concerns you have with us that we can lift up to the state and federal levels, but also sharing it with your other, municipal colleagues. Someone might be dealing with a similar issue. It's an opportunity to go over some of those solutions that you've tried out or some lessons learned, and for everyone to kind of learn from each other as we move forward. I also did want to mention our Septic Smart for Lake Erie program. So this was a separate grant that LEWPA received from the New York State Pollution Prevention Institute through their community grants program. And this is providing funding for septic system maintenance workshops for the public. We realized there was a need because many of the health departments just didn't have the resources to be out there, having workshops regularly, informing people of ways that they can maintain their system. And especially after many folks were working from home or schooling from home during the pandemic, those septic systems were being used more. And so we wanted to get some education out there for folks to understand what are the ways they can make sure they're maintaining them, what's important, and get some septic system tank pump outs as well. So this grant is actually paying for a $30 rebate for anyone who attends one of these workshops. And there's prizes for folks who attend, there's pizza, they're nice little evening workshops.
The rebate is for pumping after you've attended.
Right,
Not
yes.
for just attending.
Not for just attending, yes. If you attend a workshop and then you get a pump out, you're eligible for a $30 rebate, which is about 10% off. It's nice. It's a good incentive to attend, right? An hour of your time, basically. So those are going to be scheduled. We're going to have one in Northern Erie County this spring. So that will go out to all of you, and I encourage you, if you're, a member of a rural community, to please share that on your websites or with your folks and let them know about that opportunity. I'm also going to let you know about some of the things we do to try to get municipal input. So back in 2013, we did a survey. All of the municipalities in green were the ones that responded to that survey. And we are hoping to do that again this year. So 10 years later, in 2013, I think it was low lake levels. It was a whole different series of issues. So in 2023, I think we're going to be seeing high lake levels, sage impacts, a lot of shoreline impacts, a lot more erosion, some flooding. And so it'll be good to actually get that out and see what are the concerns of municipalities now. So be on the lookout for that. This is my little blurb of what I'm asking from all of you. So first off, attend these water quality committee meetings to share your concerns and any solutions you may have tried. And also let us know if you have any water quality plans out there. You've got designs or studies that you need funding for. Let us know so that we can see what we can do. We are in contact with various organizations. We are following what grants are out there, and we might be able to find some assistance for you. Also, I'm asking that you complete the municipal needs survey that'll be coming out this year. That can be, if you want to do one from your community and you want to coordinate with folks, that's fine. Or you can send it around. I'll happily take multiple perspectives. If you want, a DPW person to fill it out, or a supervisor, or a planner, or a parks person, or whomever from your municipality, I will take all of the input. And then also take advantage of those grant resources. As we are sending out these newsletters, I'm trying to get the word out on grants that are out there. Take a look at them, see if you have a project that might qualify. And, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to help you or put you in contact with someone who might be able to help. And then, of course, just promoting opportunities and spreading the word, for instance, for those septic system maintenance workshops. Getting the word out on your website or your social media to let your residents know that there's opportunities for programs out there for you. So this is my contact information. If you don't already have it, feel free and reach out to me, and I'm happy to take any questions if anyone has any.
Anyone have any questions at all? That was a great presentation. Did a great job laying everything out, Joanna. Thank you.